Now, would you like to just take a couple of minutes to deal with a couple of headings? First of all, the Stratford Institute, and that phrase has been a real puzzle to many of us, and we've been trying to find out just what the Stratford Institute is. And what's your thoughts on that?
Along the side tables, I put on the first table a lot of information on the Stratford Institute, some photographs of the site sign, to remind everybody where this all started. I'll make a couple of points, and then I'll try and, when I upload the documents, I'll highlight the passages from the university and from the city and when they were trying to get this project up and running. First off, I've already made it clear that the expropriation in the affidavit was for the University of Waterloo Stratford Institute. That was in 2008. Deloitte provided a report to the city that said you're going to make $42 million a year in economic benefit. Well, that report says it's for the Stratford Institute. After the land was transferred to the city, the university confirmed the institute has nothing to do with it. And I have an email to that respect as I went and tried to figure this out when I realized something was wrong. Then Bernard Daniel incorporates the Stratford Institute for Digital Media in 2010. That's the company that we understand is being dissolved. Does anybody here can put up their hand if they know who Bernard Daniel is? Yes, William.
Bernard Daniel is Daniel Bernard Matheson.
He's correct. So this is a company that was incorporated as a founding director by Dan himself. That's the company that I understand got the money, and I stand to be corrected if Dan would just answer the question, provide the accounting. There's no question. An institute is being dissolved. It's my understanding that it's Dan's institute that's being dissolved. There has been no accounting provided to the public for the $50 million given on behalf of the institute. Now I asked the university, I want the accounting, I want to understand where the money went, and I want you to tell me straight up and give me the paperwork. I got served a lawyer, or not a lawyer's letter, but a letter from their security telling telling me I'm no longer allowed on university lands anywhere in Canada. University of Waterloo lands. Now I intend to go to the university and call them to the carpet for this. But I suspect that my interest in this accounting is giving them some real reason to start acting the way they are. Prior to this, I always understood the university was fully open, and that every dollar is accounted for and publicly acknowledged. We're about to find out.
As just a matter of clarification, anyone can go on the Industry Canada website, and this is the document for the Stratford Institute for Digital Media, and it says that one of the directors is Bernard Daniel, and he lives at 50 Morrison Street, Stratford, Ontario. It's right there. It's accessible to anyone on that. And if I can just interject something here, Lawrence, I also asked the mayor about that, and he referred me to the University of Waterloo. And it says, your recent email inquiry regarding the Stratford Digital Media was referred to me by the city of Stratford. And this is Dennis Huber, Vice President of Administration and Finance for the University of Waterloo. And it says, I can confirm that the Stratford Institute for Digital Media was separately incorporated, and 2 University of Waterloo employees previously participated in its activities. Secondly, it was originally located in the University of Waterloo's rented space in Stratford at no cost to the Institute. And thirdly, the University of Waterloo did not provide funding other than rent-free space to the Institute. And finally, open text was a major funding source for the Institute. So that's from the Vice President of Finance from the University of Waterloo in that. Next item, the mayor's businesses and employment, etc.
just before we leave the other point, a question that everybody should ask themselves is why would Dan Matheson not use his last name on a federal document? Now, what I'm going to explain to you about my understanding of Dan's businesses come from Dan, come from the documents that we have on some companies that he has, and I'm only going to give you a few of them because they're the few that may have some impact on what's happening. Dan owns Matheson and Associates Insurance Limited. He's an owner. He owns Matheson and Associates Advisory Services. He's an owner. On his websites for those companies, he makes it clear that he's the go-to guy for getting money, giving advice, setting up businesses, that type of thing. It's self-explanatory. He also works for Don McDougall's company, eJust Systems. He's a marketing manager. He works for Don McDougall company, Prada Management Systems, also marketing manager. These are digital media companies, or at least my understanding is they are. I'll leave it to everybody to figure out the rest. He is a partner and a director of Alika Holdings Incorporated, has been for some time. He's a full partner, I won't say he's a full partner, he's a partner with Peter Hyde. And now we know that there may be some additional companies because Dan has publicly announced that he has a conflict of interest because of his business dealings or partnerships with Mr. Hyde on the new lands that are being developed on Erie Street and over at Fran. Now, aside from that, there's a host of things that he is involved in, but one of the things that's important here is, and that needs to be understood, is if somebody is involved in these businesses and it's all got to do with digital media, I had asked Dan whether or not there was any conflict, and I can't get an answer. Only recently on these new ventures has he started to suggest that there might be a conflict. So that's an area that should be checked into.
And regarding the university?
Well, we've covered a fair bit of it, but in 1997 we had the Stratford and beyond, and that the university was wanted. In 2006, you may remember, it was going to be a theater school. I found out from the university that the business plan showed that it wasn't going to make money. It came out negative, so they changed it. But that theater university at that time was only going to be a joint venture with the university. In 2008, it became a digital media. I tried to get the business plan. I've been told there is none. And my understanding was there's no business plan because we're getting free land, free money. We're not investing anything. We got 20 years to do our best. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The university sits on 1.3 acres rather than, you may recall back in the day, Dan originally said his dream included a 35-acre campus, etc. But it's on 1.3 acres. I've already said there is an approved site plan expansion on that 1.3 acres. And about the students, there's a lot of talk about going to 500 students or whatever. And I'm going to say it to you this way. We already know, it's admitted that the first and second year students, which covers half of them, are only coming bused on Wednesdays and Fridays or Tuesdays, 2 days a week. And I've confirmed with the university that'll be forever. So to say you have 500 students, but 250 of them are there 1 day a week, bus from Waterloo, throws a twist on it that you have to think about it. So what I suggested to the university, I said, well, even if you took and loaded it up with 1,000 students, you plopped them right down in the middle of town, where's the $42 million a year? I've never seen students yet have that kind of money, so I don't get it. The Accelerator Center is now using up a substantial part of the building. On a recent day when I was told I can't go on the university lands, before I was told that, I was actually forcibly removed from the building that I allowed them to build with my consent. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the Accelerator Center and I'm questioning it. Well, how much of this building is being used by the Accelerator Center? The answer was, Mr. Ryan, it's time for you to leave. Well, if it's not being used by the university, somebody should go down, since I can't, find the answer to that question.
I guess I should comment, I went to the meeting that was a town hall meeting for the university a couple of weeks ago, and I asked Jenny DeBanco if there was a business plan, Lawrence, and she assured me there was, but it's secret, and it can't be revealed beyond the university. And I asked Christine McWebb, who's the program person, Dr. McWebb, if there's a budget, and she assured me there's a budget, and it projects out 5 years. Can I see it? No, it's a secret. And I asked, well, can the city see it? No, city can't see it either. So well, it's interesting, the things you find out when you ask questions. Now, the financial impact.
In order to understand how much money this is costing the taxpayer, you have to start with before I came along. You've got 30 years. There's been no taxes paid other than the taxes I paid. And I paid a few $100,000, but this site could generate $2 million a year. That's an estimate, but it's a reasonable estimate if it was fully developed. So if you take 30 years and the loss of $2 million plus the interest, that would equal your debt. So this site single-handedly could have paid that debt. Then you have the economic losses because the site wasn't in use. Now I suppose that word economic losses, we're not talking about just the businesses that would sit on the site that would make some money. We're talking about the outflow from that, just like Dan said with the Deloitte report. Having 1,000 students sitting on that site, or 500, would make $42 million a year. I don't agree, but that's beside the point. It would make money to have some students. It would make a lot more money to have the site fully developed. Then you've got the millions in campaign. And I call the campaign the city campaign, and we refer to it in our claim. We say that in 1997, the city changed its mind after selling the site, after giving us the first permit, after spending a lot of money getting started. Somebody changed their mind. And then rather than just come up and say so, we ended up with this campaign of interference. No one could figure it out. But, nobody could figure out why, but at least Dan had courtesy when they opened up the university. And he went, and it was videotaped, and he said this all started in 1997. Then you have the $50 million in counting for the university. Then you have the expropriation costs. And I can give you a bit of the breakdown, but what you're paying for is $25 million for the market value. Now, these are numbers I've claimed. $7.5 million for the replacement cost of the shops that this is not included in the market value. I've included the contributory value and left the replacement overrun in a separate claim, which I'm allowed to do. $8 million in delay, $14 million in disturbance, $15 million in business loss, executive time, that includes Wendy and myself, special difficulty in relocation. I do intend to relocate the project. It's unfortunate it can't just be built where it was supposed to be, but if it were to be built, well, then you would save that. Then there's the tax liability. Very few people understand this, but in the claim we tried to explain it very clearly. Because it was a forced taking, I don't pay the taxes on the money you pay me, you do. So at the end of the day, if it's valued at $25 million and I have to pay some of that money to Revenue Canada, you gotta add that on. Then there's the interest, then there's the legal and consulting cost, and we've already spoken about that.
I'll just interject again. I have a copy of the Deloitte report from 2008, and regarding the $42 million that was to be generated, it outlines that there were going to be 85 conferences a year provided by it. That's 85. And that 55 of those conferences were going to be 2 to 3 day events, and that 4 to 7 day events would be 50 each year. So that was going to generate considerable revenue for the city, and that's one of the reasons that we got the university, was so that we could have these 85 conferences a day, or a year as well. So if you're interested, the Deloitte report is on the web as well from 2008. That's in the executive summary section. $15 million for legal costs, that sounds quite high, Lawrence. I tried to find out, and 6 months ago I asked for what it has cost. And I said, they told me it would take 2 weeks. It's now 6 months. And actually, I was quite surprised because I thought this is the computer age of accounting, isn't it? It really shouldn't take that long. But I guess I just have to be patient. My project, what are you planning, Lawrence?
On the table beside us, I've set out some reminders of the project that we had designed and we had started on. Rather, a lot of you likely already know a good chunk of it, but the shops were going to be fully restored. There was the water park, there was the hotel, there was the dance bar. Wendy and I had sat down and designed the shops and the site so that it was usable first and foremost by the citizens of Stratford. We were setting it up to be recession-proof. And as far as the hotel component was concerned, it was approved for a hotel component. The Marriott documentation is over there where they had said, yes, we'll manage it, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll upload all of this information again on the website so you can go through it in detail. But the reality of it is, the first permits were issued, the work was underway, and when we were expropriated, Rosati had to leave the site. So here's a contractor already hired and working, and you kick him off the site, so 6 years later you can say, well, let's go find another contractor. The other thing too, it's over there, in 1998, Wendy and I paid for a full-page flyer to go out to every single house in Stratford, and it's fairly common in Stratford that if you get a couple hundred replies, that's pretty important. We got several hundred, we kept them all, and Keith Cullen was one of the first ones to sign, said the quicker it gets done, the better. I left it over there so everybody can have a look at it. But we'll upload some of those and some other important ones too.
Lawrence, from time to time I have somebody mention Mississauga and your relationship with the city of Mississauga. Would you like to comment on that?
Yes. You may have first heard about the Mississauga matter from Chris Rickett when he was a councillor. He thought this was a way to get under my skin. It didn't. He misunderstood it. Mayor Matheson's done the same thing. And what's interesting is in the paperwork that they filed for the $500,000 offer that they made Wendy and I, they tried to use it then too. They were cross-examined on it. It was nothing more than a ploy. And if it had any weight, if it was anywhere near the reality that they tried to impress upon everybody, then they would not have changed the offer from $500,000 to an interim payment of $5 million. Now, part of the city's reply includes their claims about me being a bad guy and I got beat up by the city of Mississauga. Nobody would ever work for, I didn't have the support. That's what they were going for. You have to understand, BMAR is not a development company. Wendy and I were the owners of the Cooper site. We were going to develop it. Totally different ballgame. This was simply a general contract that was done for the city of Mississauga. At the same time, we were doing a general contract for the TTC. Now, I've left over there some information on the battles, and when it comes to the TTC, there's articles, there's an offer. We didn't accept it. A little while later, the matter did resolve. Not able to tell you that amount because we agreed to keep it non-disclosed except for if it's needed in court. In this case, if it's needed in the OMB hearing, they can ask me to open up that paperwork. But the TTC and the city of Mississauga were two jobs going on simultaneously. All that paperwork over there from the judges says that I'm the only one, not the only one, that I know of what I talk about. And there's judgment after judgment, because what we did, it was such a large case. There was a lot of change orders and each one was handled separately. I had suggested to the court that we break it down. So we broke it down into 200 mini trials. After I won the first 100, they gave up. So that resolved in my favor. When it comes to the City of Mississauga contract, even I've heard that in 2 years they whooped me. Well, the contract was signed in 1990. It's still not resolved. Justice O'Connor, back, I think it was in 2002, finally agreed with me and told the City of Mississauga, you're going to pay these subs. I had pay when paid clauses, so I'm the general, you're the sub. You don't get your money until I get mine. And we're all on the same pay stub. Anyway, I won, and we got all the money back for the subs, and they got paid right away. Then, in 2004, this Fragamini, Justice Fragamini, had issued a decision, and in it he said, we're going to approve, or he approved, $800-some thousand to be paid to BMAR. But he says, okay, now what I have to do is subtract what you've already got. He got his accounting wrong. He ended up with me owing $92,000 instead of the city owing me $92,000. So I went back to Justice Fragamini because the acts, or the court rules say if it's a clerical error, you can go back to the judge and ask him to fix it. It's all documented. Anyway, I kept the transcript of what he said because it's important. It's something I'm going to present, obviously, if the city keeps up with this. He said, I can't fix it, Lawrence. I'm the judge. I made the decision. You got to appeal. So we went to the Court of Appeal, but we split it into two parts. The first part, the judge agreed with him. The second part hasn't been argued yet. So what we're going to have to do if the city continues to try and impress people that somehow BMAR is a negative, we'll have to put the paperwork out so you can all see that it's not. Then the other part of that was they had not explained that the city claimed $1.5 million in damages against BMAR. After several years of trying to get it to court, on the day that the trial started, the city walked up and said, we withdraw the claim. Now, it's important. That claim was for doing shoddy work. It was for not finishing the contract, and the evidence was clear. I finished the original contract the year previous. This was all change order work. We just decided to get apart, and they decided they would do it by way of calling it an end. They said, we'll finish the rest. So one of the very important questions that was put to the city witnesses, do you have any grievance? Now, their top men were up there giving evidence. Do you have any grievances with any of the workmanship that Ryan's carried out and the subtrades? The answer was no. We never had to redo anything he did.